of it.
Is this what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
It's below 80 in Florida, so
I know.
we're panic stricken and we're trying to
And it
negotiate
stays so
the
cold
heat.
in my house, and Shannon's trying to get warm, so
Yeah.
she's a nice
Pardon the
little sweater now.
turtleneck. But it's fallen below 70, and so time for a turtleneck for this girl.
Which is good because, we're talking about something that kind of makes you want to stay inside and not go outside. We're talking about grief and loss today.
Yes.
And I think this has kind of come up in a lot of our videos and a lot of our episodes, kind of in small ways. Because when you deal with grief and loss, whether at a young age or in your adulthood, you say it's all linked. Mm-hmm. And so I think it affects other parts of your life. We just talked about it with the holidays and how, when you have grief and loss, it can really kind of rear its ugly head during the holidays too.
And I'd love to see the stats, Suzanne, on the holidays, because man, when I'm out in the world just rubbing elbows with people are losing. There's a lot of loss. I guess, New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. I mean, I guess there's a lot of holidays too where people are drinking and driving. Like there's a lot more people, a lot more activity. But I mean, I bet the statistics on death are much higher.
I had a friend who just lost her mother on Christmas Eve.
No.
Like she went completely downhill. She was diagnosed with cancer and was gone in like 2 weeks. It was the craziest thing. And she died on Christmas Eve. I mean, it's just... It's so heartbreaking. And I've talked about this before. I lost my brother at a very young age. When I was 8, he was 9. We were playing up in a tree. He fell out of the tree. And I was in such a small town. There was no ambulance service. There was no 911. So that by the time we got him to the hospital, he was brain dead. So, I dealt with loss from a very, very young age. And the craziest thing, I was thinking about this the other day because I know we were going to talk about this topic, but I remember when I was probably 14 or 15. So my brother died when I was 8. Yeah. Around 14 or 15, there were 2 young girls at my school. There was an older sister and a younger sister. They were their parents' only children, those 2 girls. They were driving home from somewhere, and a semi, we had 2-lane roads in the small town where I was from, a semi veered into their lane, hit them head on, killed both girls instantly. Now, I was not, it was awful. God awful. I was not real close with either girl. They were younger than I was, but literally could not get myself out of bed in such anguish over their death, which was the craziest thing to me. I couldn't explain it to my mom. I was working when I was, that age at a local drugstore fountain. I could not go to work. And I look back at it now and think it had to, I was grieving my brother, right?
Yeah, it touches. Well, one of the things about you, Suzanne, when you because you've shared like this before, which is so vulnerable, and thank you so much because it's just really intense stuff. But when you share about losing your brother and just kind of how you get affected, I get this sense all over my body that for you, you know the pain.
Yes.
You know it. And so where as a therapist, one of the places that I think that I'm good is that I know people's pain with most things, but this is an area that I lack a bit because I've been very blessed and I haven't lost anybody kind of out of the ordinary. My grandmother, of course, she was 85, and she had dementia. But I get this sense of you every time that when somebody passes, your level of empathy for their parents, their spouse, their children is so through the roof. You feel it. You feel it. You literally feel it.
It's so true. I feel it.
Because you were so present when you lost your brother. You felt that intense pain, and you know people's pain with this, and you can't talk yourself out of it.
No.
Like someone like me, I could be like, well, time's a healer and all that flowery garbage that people come up with. It's like, well, there's a reason and they're in a better place. And that's people's worst, right?
But the worst.
Right?
Do never say
Don't
that to
say
someone.
That. But that's the thing is like, I don't know it in my core the way you know it in your core. And you can't, there's nothing fluffy that'll take it away.
No.
And so you just like want to go to bed and pull the covers over your head because you know they're about to embark on the most painful thing they've ever walked through in their entire life. And you're like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think, with my job, as a news anchor, I think, that has always resonated with me. Whenever I'm reporting something about someone losing someone, it's always been especially hard for me to report on something like that. So yeah, it does. I feel it in my core.
Yes.
I feel it in my core. And I remember after those 2 girls died, I went and visited their parents every single day because I just felt their pain.
That's why I love you. That is so, that is so kind, because I think the first thing I want to say about grief that I'm learning as well is people look at grief as if it's like a period.
Right.
Oh, you're grieving.
Right.
It's grief. You're in grief. And I even talk like that. Well, you're in grief. It's not a period or a stage. It's a continuum.
Yeah.
And
it lasts a long time for some people.
Yeah, and you are no different from my mother who lost her brother. You can say the person's name. The tears are there.
Yeah.
You're in it. It's not something that goes away. It lessens slowly. It gets a little lighter. It's not part of your everyday, maybe, and I don't want to speak for you.
No, that's accurate, yeah.
But it gets a little smaller, and I do think that there's this thing with grief, because I know with my grandmother I would cry and cry and cry, but then there was this point at which maybe after 5 years that I switched to laughing when I thought of her.
Yeah.
And I still do now, and so it's so beautiful. But again, grandma, it was appropriate. I had her for a very long time. So I think that early grief, when it's somebody you don't expect to lose, it's before their time, it's out of order, it's not grandparent, it's son, it's, sibling, that it lasts a very long time. So please be respectful, those of us that are not in that with this person. This isn't just a grief process. They're not just in a small process. It could be a lifetime.
Yeah. And at least for several years. I mean, I know my one of my good friends, she lost her mother, and her mother and her were so tight.
Close.
And, it was a very long time. She could not pull herself out of it. Yeah. And she shouldn't have. I mean, it's you go through this, and she's like, I hate when people tell me that, it'll get better, and I hate when people tell me that she's in a better place, and I hate when, there's so many things that we all say. I think the only thing you can really say is, I'm so sorry. And
what do you need?
Yeah, what do you need?
How can I show up? Because I love that. It touches me so deeply, Suzanne, when you say that. We should have had a box of tissue here.
I can get one.
We should. But when she says that, when you say you went to see that girl's parents, because I think about that. When people lose a child, I think about that. I think, God, every day they will be in so much pain. And I think about that specifically because I'm a mom, and I can't even say anything about my kids because I would be hysterical. So let me just say, like, as a parent, like, I think about that when parents lose their kids, like, that I hope their kids' friends are there all the time.
Yeah.
Because you need that reminder, you need that laughter in your house, you need that, because it's just the most tremendous loss anybody could ever live through, for your mom, for my grandmother.
Yeah, to this day, my mom and I just over the holidays were talking about Trace, my brother Trace, who my son is now named after my brother. And I don't know if she will ever really process that grief. My mom was the best with us, both my parents. They were doing the best they could, obviously going through their own grieving process. But I remember my mom gave me a notebook, and she said, I want you to write down, all of your memories of Trace. And, I think that was like the best thing that she could have done.
Yeah. So that you can remember them, because as I'm right here with you.
I'm gonna go some tissues.
As time goes, those memories get fainter, and it feels horrible.
It does.
It's so scary because
I forgot even what he looked like.
Yes.
It's the craziest thing. I go back and look at pictures, and you you forget what they even look like. I mean, he was my brother, for 8 years.
Yes.
How do you forget it's like my son's 8 now. And I'm thinking, how would Lane ever forget his sister? How would she ever forget what he looked like?
Yeah, but you do.
But you do.
And that's what a brilliant gift. It's my father, my adopted father who raised me from 2, is in hospice. And I've had the pleasure of creating 4 weeks of pretty wonderful memories with him. We were estranged before that. It's been a very difficult relationship. And I've already started to forget some of the memories. And I'm like panic stricken because this is what I have, and so I was thinking, I need to write this down because there's these funny moments where we're both laughing or he says something so sweet and it's just so powerful. And then the next day or a week later, I'm like, it's not as clear. Yeah. And I'm like panic, like I want to feel it the way I did a week ago. And so I can only imagine how the years have gone by, how some of that has slipped, and you're just like, oh, no, I want to feel it like it was yesterday. So to have that book to go back to and read those memories and pictures, it's so important,
Yeah, we had there are a lot more pictures today than there were back then. Right? Because, back then you had to get it developed and the whole 9 yards. So I don't have a ton of pictures of Trace, but yes, I do still have some pictures of, like he and I when we were, our first day of school together and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that people can do for someone who's going through a loss, like a severe loss, someone very close to them, is to just give them some time, because it takes a long time. What do you, what are some things that you tell people to kind of help them through the grieving process?
Well, I think you just said the most magical words. The biggest thing I hear in my office about grief is that people get so angry because everybody expects, it's been a year, for Christ's sake. Are you still whining about that? He died a year ago. Like, get on with your life. And people want to choke their friends to death because it's like, a year? Yeah. I was in bed for 3 of those. Like, a year is nothing. So what I would say to people is be so patient with your friend who's lost their family member or their spouse or their child, or God forbid their child. It is going to be years, not a year, years before maybe they feel like doing Halloween again or Christmas or anything. Like, and could you just be compassionate to that? Like, compassionate, like, hey, we're having a Halloween party. No, I don't really feel, I completely understand. Of course you don't feel like going to a party yet. I get it. Would you like to spend time together? Is there anything we can do for you? Like, just being understanding that this is
being there for them.
Being there for them. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask. I do this a lot with my clients, like, what do you need from me? Because some people, even when people have a new baby, I'm like, what do you need from me? Do you want me to call every day and check on you? Or do you want me to leave you alone? Because that's what I assume. I'm like, I'm not calling you. You got a sleeping baby. I'm not waking the baby up. But we don't know. So for me, I don't want you to call when I have a new baby at home. Don't. Just leave me alone. But some people are like, I'm so scared. Could you check in? Or could you check in once a week? Or somebody just lost somebody. Could you check in once a week on me? Because the week is like a day. It goes so fast. I'm in such depression. I get overwhelmed if you call every day. Find out what they need from you. And don't be afraid to say, I'm not in your shoes. I am so sorry and I feel horrible, but I can't even imagine what you need. Do you know what I could provide? How, do you want me to bring food? Do you not want me to come over for a month? Like, what do you need? Yeah. Be okay to ask that.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of times we don't realize how grief continues to show up in our lives. And I think, that's another thing that, if you've had grief, especially when you were younger or some sort of trauma when you were younger, just be really aware of how that's impacting you throughout your life, because it really has impacted me. And I mean, I look back in my 20s and I think, I thought I had it all figured out, but it started to rear, the trauma of the death of Trace, I think, showed up like in my 30s. And again, recently going through the divorce and all that, I think it showed up again for sure. But is there any advice for dealing with that trauma many, many years later, or that grief many, many years later?
Well, so the first thing I want to say is if you're watching this and you go through grief in the next 30 days or you just did in the last 30 days, please get help for it. Like, don't assume, well, of course I'm grieving, I just lost whoever, and just, I'll cry when I need to cry. Go, like, for me, like, I think hospice provides a year of counseling for free for people that have lost somebody through hospice. I'm not sure, mine's the VA, but I know I've heard that from other people where hospice has come into the home and maybe someone's had cancer or whatever. They offer a year, and I'm pretty sure it's free.
Wow.
That's who you want to be with. You don't want to be with me, an everyday therapist who, I dabble in grief. No, go to the expert who's going to help you understand this process and who knows it backwards.
And those people in hospice, they are amazing. They're amazing.
They're angels. They're truly angels. The hospice nurses, they're angelic. So go to individual for free. Go to a group where other people are in the same widows group or whatever. Get in there and do this work, because that's a great question. Like, what do you do when it hits you 30 years later? Because I'm pretty sure you didn't get to grieve when you were a kid. You probably felt like you had to take care of your parents. You had to be not a burden, or you felt like you need to get back to school. We don't grieve a lot. We skip it because life happens.
Yeah.
And then it slams us 10 years later when we're going through a divorce, or 20 years later. It slams us because it's unresolved. So the first thing is, if you're in it, please roll up your sleeves and do whatever you have to do to kind of align with it, which is the opposite of what you want to do. You're like, I don't want to think about it. I just want to survive. You don't understand. I got to go to work. I can't be crying all the time. But you're in it. So get some help and tools and skills. And then when it comes back later, same thing. Like, there are people who specialize in grief counseling. Now, you're not going to get hospice for free if it's 20 years later, but there are grief counselors that this is what they do. There's also something I know I talked about at another segment, but there's people that train in like grief processing, and they do like a 6-week grief session, and like you pay $2,000 to see them, or $1,000, whatever it is, 6 sessions, and they give you assignments. Like, you write letters and you bring in pictures, and they do the grief work, and it's intense grief work, and it's really powerful. The people that I know that have done it have just been like, oh my God, a weight is lifted. Again, for the person who kind of stuffed it, and then now they've lost their spouse, and now it's all back up. Now it's their brother, now it's their grandmother, now it's their dog, now it's their spouse, and it's all in a cluster, and they can't even move. So those like grief counselors that just do that intense grief work, or I can't remember there's an actual name for it. Forgive me, I can't remember the exact name for it, but where it's like a 6-week process or an 8-week process, and they take you through it. If you can find that, do that. Do that experience. EMDR we talked about, and other segments. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing removes old trauma. So again, I didn't even know, Suzanne, that you guys couldn't just call an ambulance. That just breaks my heart. Like, that's not only a death, that's a severe trauma. Now you're watching this person and you can't help them. That is trauma. So if you can get that trauma removed with EMDR, that's really powerful. But definitely get in there with those psychotherapeutic resources, groups, support groups. No matter how long it's been, you need that connection where other people know your pain. They've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I think when people hear that you've, had a loss, what was that? Like 36 years ago.
Yeah.
That you think, oh, well, that was 36 years ago.
Yeah, you're over that.
You're over that. But it's crazy how it never goes away. I mean, it is crazy. Yeah. Because it's true. You can say his name and it's like, Yeah. I mean,
I'm surprised you were able to name your son after him. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. But no, it does. I think what people have explained to me is there is a piece of you that leaves, and it's real hard to fill that spot or that hole or that, you know what I mean? And that's, like my mom losing her brother. It's like, that's a part, because your siblings are a part of you.
Yeah.
And so when you lose them, it has to feel like you lose a part of you. And I don't know that you replace it. But the other thing that I will add, when you talk about like how do you heal? So, therapy, groups. The other thing is rituals. I think it's so important to have rituals. Like some people go to grave sites and they just bring their tissue box and they sit and they talk to that person. But whatever your ritual is, establish a ritual. I know my grandmother was cremated, so there was no grave site. My mom did this beautiful butterfly garden in her backyard, and that was the site, that we would go and sit and talk to grandma, or I would release balloons on her birthday. I think that's really bad for the birds, so don't tell anybody that.
Right.
But, we killed a whole bunch of animals in honor of my grandmother.
Grandma.
But, we would do something to commemorate her on her birthday and on her death day, and that butterfly garden was that. And as a result of my mom doing that, it sounds silly, but like whenever I see a butterfly, I'm like, I get emotional and I say, hi, Grandma. Like they're very symbolic to me. And I know that sounds crazy, but my grandmother and my mom's lifelong best friend that I called my Aunt Karen, she was such a sweetheart. She died of cancer 3 weeks from when my grandmother died. And I never see butterflies that there isn't two. And so that's like the symbol for me, because after my grandmother and my aunt passed, my mom was understandably devastated. And it was unexpected with my aunt. She had been battling cancer for years, but she'd always been beating it. She was in all the books on pancreatic cancer. She had beat it, and it was amazing. And then literally she started to not feel well on a Tuesday. She was dead Friday. And my mom was like,
what?
A what? And then my grandmother died 3 weeks later. So my mom was leveled, and what she did is she walked outside one day right after, and a butterfly landed on her hand and just sat there forever. So like that's our symbol. So develop a symbol, whether it's a rainbow, whether it's a butterfly, develop your symbol, that's going to help you. We have visitors.
Hi guys. Hey, we're in the middle of teething, so it's okay. Yeah. Say hi to Shannon. Okay, give us a few minutes, okay? Yeah, Max is coming at 3:30, okay? What time is it?
3:12.
Oh, okay. All right. So just give us a couple minutes. All right, we had a little pause.
Yes. So, so for me, butterflies mean so much. And I know people that rainbows are their symbol. I know people that coins are their symbol, like that pennies from heaven, that kind of concept. But I think that is the stuff that helps you through, and I know it might be woo-woo or hokey or whatever, but when you're having your roughest day and you look down and there's that daggone penny, and that's your symbol, or there's that rainbow, or there's that butterfly. I have to come up with a symbol for my dad, but that's going to make the difference, to have that just reassurance that they're here somewhere.
Yeah, they're your angel.
They're your angel, or whatever it is, and really coming to terms with that. So having that place, and I think it's important too, not just to have the symbol, the rainbow, the butterfly, but having a place, whether or ritual. Like I have I know someone who talks to their family member in their car. Like every time they drive, they're like, "Hey, how are you?" And they have those conversations. You know, so have those rituals.
Right.
I think they're healing. They really bring healing. Celebrating on birthday or celebrating on death day, doing things to honor our loved ones. So many times people just try to just move on with your life, and I don't think that's a great,
we did that. I mean, we didn't ever bring it up on the day he died or the day or his birthday. We didn't really talk about it.
That
I mean,
doesn't feel good,
I
right?
know, but
it
it just felt so heavy. I think maybe with a child it might be a little different. I don't know.
I don't know how parents even get out of bed ever again.
You don't even realize it until you have kids, and then you think, how did my parents even go through this?
How did they
function?
No, I don't know how people wake up. So no harm, no foul with that. But I think if you're in a position to establish those rituals, I think it is more healing. I know, especially, God forbid, say you lose a spouse and you have children. I think children could benefit from that. Let me put it that way. I know my daughter was so confused when we lost my grandmother, because my daughter's she's an old soul. She was 5 years old, and she loved grandma. And she loved grandma. I know why she loved grandma, because grandma was a little bit crazy at that point. She had dementia. But she loved grandma because grandma was in the same spot on that couch every time she walked through the door. through mommy and daddy's divorce, grandma was
Right
on that
there.
couch. So she was stable. She was stability. And she would say the same thing because she had dementia. So, but she was stable. And so when my daughter lost her, she was really upset at 5 years old. And we did a God box that was, a symbol, and you can write letters to grandma. And that meant the world to her. And so when she felt scared or she felt worried because, she's trying to understand death, she would just write a letter to grandma. So she's worried about somebody. She's like, hey, grandma, can you take care of this person? Or it just was powerful for her to be able to have a ritual to honor and connect with grandma. And I think little kids need that.
Yeah.
I think little kids need that.
Yeah. And my friend does that with her mom. She has a ritual that she does. I'm not sure what she does with her mom, but she does something on her birthday every year to honor her mother. And yeah, that is good advice to create a ritual around that person.
Well, our sweet Toddy lost his mom last year, and it was so sweet. I wish that I had done it on purpose, but I'm just not that person. I accidentally called him on her birthday. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm shopping. And he's like, this is what my mom would be doing. And it's her birthday. And beautiful, and he felt her because, he's doing what she would be doing. And it's hard. Yeah. It's painful, but I think that it's better than not honoring and not connecting. You know what I mean? I just think it's, and he's done a really great job this year of doing things that she would do and baking things that she would be baking, really just kind of stepping into that connection with her, even though she's not here. Oh, I loved her too. So even though she's not here to bake him that chocolate cake, that he can bake that chocolate cake in honor of her. And I think that is, he's doing well. And I think that kind of thing can help you get through it.
It's so funny that you say that. So the tree where my brother lost his life is, my mom had that house, and she just recently sold it, like in the last couple of months. So she sold the house that I grew up on, that we grew up in. Ooh. And I went by there when I was home for the holidays and took a picture of the tree, and I'm gonna frame it and put it up in my room because I was like, you know what, I need to. That's like a symbol, that's a symbol. So I'm gonna do that. So it's, it's painful, but it's also healing.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly it, Suzanne, is like, it takes tremendous courage. Like, again, I'm just sitting here in awe of you because it takes so much courage to say, I'm going to put that tree and I'm going to look at it every day and make it not so scary. And just, that was, my brother began his life this way and he ended it this way. And I'm going to connect to that. And just, it's painful, but it's healthy and it's healing, and that takes so much courage. Yeah. But I think that is, when we don't do grief, when we skip it, when we busy ourselves, when we, medicate ourselves, then we just stay in it that much longer. And granted, even though we've said it's not going to like go away, but it does get less. Yeah. And it does get,
and it only comes up when you're doing videos. And then you turn into two crybabies.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get feedback from men going, don't quit your day job. Oh my God.
Please, no more crying sessions.
Anyway, we feel your pain. We know how you feel. I love you.
All right. Just be gentle with yourself.
Yeah,
I
there's
know.
a lot of you out there right now. So
there.
Please, if this helps you not feel alone today, to know that at some point, even me, I've been so blessed to not lose, anybody kind of out of order, like great aunt who's 85, grandma who's 85. I've been so blessed, but my day is here. Like, it happens for all of us. If you're blessed enough to be on the planet for a long time, you're going to bury people. Yeah. So just know that you're not alone, and we're thinking about you, and this is a tough time of year.
Yeah, and leave us your comments if you want to talk about anyone that you're grieving. We would love to hear about that person, and maybe you can make this their little tribute in our comment section. We would love to hear about the person that was special to you. Yes. And don't forget to share the video if you know of anyone who's had some recent loss and could maybe use this segment. Let us know. And if you have any questions, leave us a comment. We will definitely get back to you. Shannon is really good at coming up with tools to help people deal with these kind of things. So she's really good at that.
And life is being so kind to provide me with new experiences so that I can learn new tools.
It always does that, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it does.
Well, thank you for letting us have a cry session.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.
Take care of yourself.
Bye.
Bye.